It's been just a little over a year since I picked up a paintbrush deliberately for the very first time in my life. A year has passed, and I am still teaching myself how to paint. Today I want to share this journey and everything I learned so far with you. The desire to paint came to me randomly on an early spring day, when I impulsively ordered watercolors online, thinking of pursuing a new hobby. My goal was to do something that will make me look away from the screen, which is what I look at close to 90% of my day as required by my work. I always wanted to paint, but was too intimidated to try, or perhaps too afraid to fail. On top of that, I always had this misconception that any path in life is linear. School, university, new job, and I so close to being 30 at the time, and was already too late. The best news is, though, it's never too late, but we can talk about that some other time. I guess I was also sitting on this idea for too long because I didn't know what exactly I want to paint and where to start. At some point I realized that I want yet another museum to capture the beauty I see all around me. To capture the essence of the English countryside and seasons and its beautiful cottages, all of that never ceases to amaze me. I already do it with my camera, but I wanted to find a way to make it physical, permanent, eternal. That's how I started. I painted nature. Let me briefly show you some of my progress from a year ago up until now. I'm not gonna go through all of it, but I guess I'll show you key moments while I continue talking about the subject in voiceover. These two were my very first sketchbooks. This one I can't even call a sketchbook really, but this one has my very first paintings. So let's start with that. I didn't know anything about watercolor paper or tools I needed at this point, so I used a little recycled paper journal I had and paint with brushes from Paint by Number kit. These were my very first attempts at a landscape. And now at this point I bought some paper online and from a local art shop. I was ambitious and tried to paint from my own photos. But most of these paintings I did in the beginning are from tutorials or follow-along videos I found online. I had an attempt at flowers and details, but I found them so incredibly difficult, so I moved on for the time being. And here I'm showing you paintings in mostly chronological order. At this point, I'm about 1.5 or 2 months in. These are just a few paintings from about month 4 or 5 during summer. Some of these you saw me paint in my videos. now about here we're on to 8 months, I think, and autumn scenes. I actually skipped about 2 months at this point and picked up painting again. I decided that I want to try something other than nature finally, and had my first attempts at faces. Here is an example of paintings I actually never finished, so I have a bit of those as well. I am jumping a little bit ahead here because these are actually 2 of the most recent paintings, but they were in this journal, so I'm showing them here at this point. This notebook is my most recent practice sketchbook where I'm attempting certain details and techniques that are new to me, and I'm finally starting to paint details and flowers, and I've also been using masking fluid here. I'm currently in my dog phase as well at the moment. As you might have noticed, I find them super cute. Okay, let's actually go back to the very beginning of my story. For a complete beginner like me and someone who is really bad at shapes and perspectives, natural landscapes seemed like a safe option, as I didn't need to learn to paint the detail right away. Watercolor was also a rather deliberate choice for that same reason. I loved that watercolor is fluid and unpredictable, which seemed to align with my need for the absence of structure. A year later, I already have multitude of brushes, paint sets and paper journals, but I started with a 1/24 half-pan Winsor & Newton student palette, a cheap brush set and a mini journal. I watched countless process videos all over social media to understand the sequence of actions, and some of them I followed step by step. I am a visual learner, so to me, jumping straight into it works best. Watching how others do it, analyze it, and replicate the action. To you, the way of learning might be different, and that's okay. In an ideal world, I'd probably start by learning the practical bits like color theory, how to mix pigments, different techniques, etc. But I know that to me, that would serve as a way of productive procrastination and stall the doing part. Instead, I simply needed to begin by taking action. Focus on quantity rather than quality. Which is what I did. I painted every day whenever I could, however much time I had, 10 minutes, half an hour, an entire evening. I think that's the best secret there is. Repetition is key. I kept painting from tutorials, from process videos on YouTube and TikTok, from pictures on Pinterest, from my own photos. One thing though, I would always try to finish the painting, no matter how badly I think it's going. It's tempting to leave your work halfway through when you feel like it's not going well. What I found is that there is always a point when you think your painting is done for and there is no way to rescue it. Whenever that feeling came about, I got up, got some rest, looked somewhere else, and then continued working on the same painting again later on until it's done. Some took only a couple of hours to finish, while others took days. But I had to see them through, instead of quitting when it seemed too difficult. This is why I strongly recommend starting with a mini journal. Since miniatures don't require that much detail, it feels safer to paint on, especially if you're like me, are very self-critical and are afraid of failure. It took me over 6 months to go from small postcard size to A5, and I am still not confident enough to go bigger. Oh, and also, forget about the correct way of using watercolors. For a complete beginner, no such thing exists in my opinion. Use as much water as you need until you understand how much is enough. Overwork the paper, layer while it's layering. Use white if you really want to. You need to mess up and discover for yourself why certain rules exist. Just because someone told you so, it won't make you understand why it's important and how it works. Now, lastly, I do want to address the sort of elephant in the room, because when I made my 2 months progress video, I received quite a lot of comments telling me that I am dishonest and that it seems that my progress is a little too quick for the 2-month mark. And there is another issue that I want to talk about. I am the type of person who gets an impulse idea and it continues living rent-free in my head until I take time and fulfill it. The amount of projects that I started in my life, big or small, successful or not, well, it's ridiculous. I was a very creative person ever since I was a child, and I always needed to create something, be it music, and I played musical instruments and sang, or do something by hand, be it clay figurines or silly pencil sketches in my maps notebook, or even jewelry and little toys from beads. And I loved it all, and I was actually always good at everything creative I did. And this is not a brag at all. If anything, this is the reason why I never succeeded at any of these things. First of all, I wanted to do too many things at once. And second, while I was naturally artistically inclined, I didn't have any guidance on how to put in just pure raw effort. Some would use the word talented for this, but I don't believe in talent personally. I believe in natural predisposition. I think every single one of us has a natural predisposition for something, but it has to be coupled with immense work. And the latter one, I didn't have any understanding of. Just like someone might have a natural predisposition for maths and numbers or languages or literature, or have an agile body or sense of rhythm and movement, I naturally had a predisposition for visual learning. I can see something and more or less well replicate it, but that doesn't mean that I have a good understanding of what I am actually doing. And a natural predisposition can only take you so far until you inevitably hit the plateau of learning. This is exactly what happened to me every single time, and not really having any guidance on how to take it further made me quit many of these things or just stay at the same level even if I continued. One can really only replicate something so much. The actual progress comes from learning, from immense amount of work, and I am very far from any kind of mastery just yet. So perhaps my short-term progress was indeed somewhat quick, but if you actually look at my year's progress, I don't think it was that quick at all, and it was rather normal. I think where I am right now, a year after, very much shows that at some point I did hit that plateau, and now I'm just figuring things out for myself and trying to understand not the visual part of it, but what I'm actually doing. There is a limit of what one can do, sort of quote-unquote naturally, and I think I hit my limit at around 2-3 months mark. From then on, I had to start developing an actual skill and start learning about techniques and composition and light and tools and everything there is. And I am in the process of doing that right now. And also, you know how initially in this video I said that it is good to niche down when you just start out? So what I'm doing right now, I am actually trying to expand instead of niching down. I showed you in my latest notebook that I started painting faces, people, portraits, still life. So yes, I think when you just start, it's good to start small, and it is what I did, and I repeated and repeated until I was sort of somewhat decent at painting landscapes, and now I am painting different things at this stage. If you have any questions whatsoever, or would like me to make any more videos on the subject or show you the entirety of my sketchbooks, please do let me know, because this video is turning out to be very long right now, so I want to keep it a little bit shorter. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.